Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Bitz About Botz. I am thrilled to be joined today by Bronwyn Hastings, who's head of partner ecosystems at UiPath. Bron has been with the organization for a little over 6 months and has been an integral part of our success as partners at WonderBotz. Bron, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
So am I. So one of the things that I think is always so interesting when I get to interview folks like you is how did we end up in this space? And so the past that you had prior to joining UiPath, I think perfectly punctuates each moment of what you've brought into your leadership at UiPath. So tell us a little bit about how you got here. We have often, a lot of people ask how it is that you get into automation or AI. It's an interesting path to this industry. So would love to hear from your words how it is that you made it here.
So Paula, it's a really interesting question for me. My background, most people don't guess, I was a chemist. So how did I get from being a chemist to being in an intelligent automation environment? And it actually had some interesting twists and turns along the way. I do like to share that I have lived in 6 countries around the world, everything from Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, South Africa, the US. And in that journey, I had the opportunity to experience culture, but also an interesting path to automation. So I'll tell you a little bit about the journey. How did I get from there to where I am today? I started off with really in the data world, being in a database environment. Oracle is one of my background of the companies that I worked in. And through that journey, had the opportunity to do a lot of acquisitions, 65 to be exact. And those acquisitions taught me so much about how do you look at a company before you have to run it. And the acquisitions spanned both data, applications, and also bringing things together in a unique way. Fast forward a little bit, I then had the journey of working for SAP, where it's very much an application company, but at the same time, looking at that scalable data environment through HANA and bringing that together in business process and data and running the world's biggest companies on those sorts of application platforms. Next step forward was really at Google. And at Google, of course, that leadership in generative AI, being part of the world of really exploring what data can do and the insights you can bring, was the next step in that journey. And then last but not least, here I am. And if you think about that journey, it brings all of these things together between insights into data, insights into how processes run, insights into what the possibilities of generative AI could be. And then if I look at UiPath, it really encompasses all of that together to have intelligent automation being such a fundamental of taking this insight into action and making it work for companies end to end.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I think not only are you able to kind of harness the power of what you learned from each of those moments, even the metaphor of being a chemist, and putting things together to create something different is really the charge that we've been tasked with as AI practitioners. So Bron, one of the other things that I thought was just so brilliant about you is just your value system and your dedication to empowering the community. So in that spirit, in your career and leading to that, what would you advise the young professionals coming out of college on how it is that you made it to this AI journey? You certainly shared your milestone, but what's some of the advice that you would give on understanding this industry, getting involved in it? Where are some application hints? How would people really dive into something like this if it wasn't on their trajectory, or something similar to what you or I experienced?
I often say there are a set of skills that you gain along the way and what allows you to set yourself apart. And I think in our discussions, we've actually talked about there are tangential things that you could learn that tell you that you can build a set of knowledge sets to get to a direction. And they're not always a linear approach. So one of the things that I really think about, and even as partnerships, not only as individuals, is how do you become specialized at something? How do you become the reason someone chooses you and the reason that you actually are chosen even as partnerships, not only as individuals? That comes down to having this deep domain expertise, but also being able to apply it in a way that customers find value in. So my journey, if I go back to what I was talking about, is how did I choose these very varied journeys to bring that domain expertise to the surface, to actually partner in a way that actually allowed it to be the thing that a customer chose, and why someone looks at you as an individual or you as two companies together truly differentiate and bring value to them. So that's part of what I think about. The other thing I think is, and I'll go into this more purpose-driven partnerships, if I may, Paula. When I look at this and you have this ability to bring that differentiation, one of the true things that surface is if we as companies come together and we look at not only partnering for our results and those outcomes, but we really partner for a higher meaning or a higher value to society, then we often find that the things that we do become more material and our results actually improve with that. So that's sort of the things that I'm looking at. And I could share some more stories if that's something that you would like about why I think this partnering with purpose becomes a secondary driver of what we do.
Absolutely. No, we'll absolutely touch on that. A couple of things that I want to tell you about that's been fantastic in our partnership as we segue into partnership with purpose is some of the work that we've done with interns and some of the areas where UiPath has been a champion, not only through the foundation, which is a very tangible way of exploring and viewing giving back to society, but also in championing summer interns and really making them feel important and giving them more than just, busy work to do, but really getting in the trenches and understanding what it is that we're trying to do and how it is that we're evangelizing AI for organizations. And so when I think about how together WonderBotz and UiPath have forged that charge of creating the next leadership, that's just such a special place to be. And it really keeps my pulse on the market. And I want to make sure that I'm up to speed on what's going on because I know that there's somebody else that's there to give back to. And I just love that about your organization. If you wanted to touch on a few things about the internship or some of the community impact that UiPath has had, I think that'll segue brilliantly into our discussion on partnering for purpose. I think that really matters to us both.
And what I would talk about here is, one, you got the reward for the 2022, I believe it was, Global Community Award as WonderBotz for your global reach on community. And if I describe it a little, where it really gets exciting is it's dedicated to committing hiring mothers in partnership in an India program called Her Second Innings, as an example. So it's not only interns, but also that diversity of taking people in and building the next wave of people that are coming into our world. And I would say this, some of the UiPathers shared it with me. They saw it with their own two eyes when you and the team traveled to India in February this year. And, the program was strongly hiring recruits and retaining college graduates from schools all over India. Now, WonderBotz brings the next generation of workers to their headquarters. You train them. You build a community of knowledge workers focused on automation. So just think about that. And in fact, WonderBotz continues to break the socio-economic barriers that can be there in many countries. So I really felt that that was a story that really exemplifies taking those interns, the next generation, and building that capability and future potential of what's in our community together. And I thought perhaps, Paula, what might be worthwhile is also just sharing the percentage of those interns and women that you take on board as part of that journey as well.
That's so kind of you to bring that up, Bron, and just such a testament to your leadership, jumping in and after 6 months knowing historical information about your partner ecosystem. I think that adds the humanity to the contracts that we write between each other, which I think is so important. And yes, thanks for bringing it up. We're very proud of our work with Her Second Innings. We're very proud of the fact that we've essentially created what we like to call an MVP factory, where we bring in talent from all over. We actually committed to 3,500 hires over the next couple of years through a program that we initiated with the government in India, and proudly offered 25% of the women that we were evangelizing, helping, upskilling, educating, come back from motherhood, not having fear of the fact that the job market may have passed her by, which we find is very important to hit the cultural pulse and make sure that our organization continues to have that culture and that impact and our value system forward facing, and we live by it, right? And I think that shows. So the testimony of some of the folks that that have witnessed WonderBotz in action, and then just echoing that importance of what we call automation for good, really doing what we can to take not only these skill sets to drive efficiencies and to make costs reduced and to optimize the way that organizations work. We're empowering the workforce of tomorrow, and I think that's such a beautiful charge.
And if I could add to that, I think I look forward to the things that we could do in the future as well, because having been a DEI champion in many companies and looking at that diversity across the board as well, and that partnering for purpose in areas such as neurodiversity or neurodistinctness, that being able to bring that value to the surface and allow us as companies to bring the potential out of individuals as they do the work of this automation for good. So I look forward to what we could do in the future.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think the sky's the limit. So I think we also have to address the fact that in order for us to be able to fund and innovate and continue to drive those initiatives, we have to make sure that we're aligned in our partnership, Bron. And I think you've brought a special, level of observation and I think, again, finesse to the partnership ecosystem to make sure that we're driving value for our clients together, that our, initiatives, both as WonderBotz and UiPath, aligned for the greater good of our clients. So we have several shared success stories across the board. We have tons of new commercial models. I raise my hand for inventing new paths to explaining the stories that drive value every single day. And I know you've been a champion of that too. So as you kind of took on this charge at UiPath, what were some of the stories that stood out to you from a client journey perspective that really, you want to model or you want to replicate or we want to do more of? What can we see in the future for our partnership of driving value for clients?
I'm glad you mentioned, putting the customer at the center or the client at the center of our partnerships and really driving that joint value. And I'm going to use two examples and then maybe mention one area that I think WonderBotz has really started to stand out in that business engagement and how that also turns up for the customer. So one of the examples that I wanted to mention was the Virginia Commonwealth University, or VCU. And as often is the case in these educational institutions, they had a limited budget, they needed to improve productivity, and they needed to improve efficiency. So it sounds like quite a similar story that you hear quite often. What VCU decided to do was look at financial processes as a launch pad for the enterprise-wide automation. The university partnered with yourselves as WonderBotz and ourselves and initially automated the grant creation process that previously required multiple manual steps. Now, if you think about this, being able to automate that doubled VCU's grant processing capability and capacity. So it doubled it. It cut the costs, saved time at the same time, and then really allowed the teams to move to what is most important to an educational institution, which was supporting digital learning initiatives. And this really set the stage for further automation. So that was the type of value we could bring when we look at the customer and what their real needs were. The second one I wanted to mention was Iron Mountain. The first win at Iron Mountain was led by WonderBotz, taking out a competitive product, and the customer also believing in the business model that WonderBotz was offering to them. That followed another competitive takeout, and it really capitalized on a business-driven pull from the customer versus license-driven push from us as vendors, really. And the use of RPA and then intelligent automation or AI really differentiated that solution to alleviate those operational challenges and set up a platform for sustained rapid growth. So why did we win together in that instance? And really it was about you knowing the landscape of the customer, understanding what they were looking for, and how to actually establish that platform of growth for the future. So I think those are two examples where it's looking at the customer, looking at their needs, and really working out what accelerates that time to value for the customer to really achieve their goals when we bring something unique to the table together.
I think those are brilliant examples. And, with Virginia Commonwealth University, by increasing the grant process, we were then able to identify areas where they could have more impact to the bottom line and include more students and diversify the body of education that they were doing. And big shout out to UiPath Foundation and the different areas in which community learnings are free and available to organizations through UiPath Academy, where that's available to everybody to kind of come in, learn at their own pace, and really get it together. And we're seeing curriculums being formed. Finally, this question of how you end up in the world of AI might actually be on paper. We're seeing different careers bud as a result of this. And it was also able to give internship opportunities to the university, which I thought was just such a triple win. We're seeing growth at Iron Mountain. I'm sure we'll be reporting that in the next couple of months together as they continue to expand their footprint, continue to absorb, and continue to grow their footprint of AI and automation, because we set them up for success. Together, we came in and said, this is how you're going to get started. This is how you're going to be set up for scale possibilities, right? And we have held their hand every step of the way. And UiPath has just been such a great partner in helping us make sure that the commercial side of the business and that the contractual elements to get that done have been done. So truly great examples of us partnering with a purpose. So Bron, you also mentioned your DEI charge. And so I don't want to deter from that. And I want to hear a little bit more about what you've done in the past and some of the contributions that you're making at UiPath. Coincidentally, I was just asked to be part of the Hispanic group of women that UiPath has forged. So I came to learn only yesterday that you guys have pockets of diversity moments where you bring people together and bring that community. And I was fortunate enough to be offered an opportunity to speak with them next August. So I'm sure you are fully invested in all of those charges at UiPath. So tell us a little bit about what DEI means to you. I know it's not just a buzzword for you. I know it's really where your heart breathes and how you think through, applying this every day. So tell us a little bit about what you've done in your short time, but very impactful time at UiPath so far.
So really that DEI focus for me is trying to play that executive sponsorship role as well, where we can actually bring the full encompassing relationships of our ecosystem to the table and looking at those moments that we can actually make a difference for. And I mentioned one that's personally passionate for me is neurodiversity, just to share a personal story. The reason why it's important to me is I happen to have a daughter that had a brain injury. And so when you realize, neurodiversity comes in many forms and you want to get the potential out of people, how can you be part of actually opening them up for people? And so I've taken some of the learnings from previous organizations that I've been at where autism at work or this neuro uniqueness has been important. But also at UiPath, we're looking for those moments that matter, that could actually bring that diversity to the table in these relationships and bringing like-minded partnerships together to really take on the discussion, to see what we could learn from each other, to see how we can share best practice. and to show how we can actually bring a difference to the table. An example, obviously, of being asked to speak in that forum. Sometimes an example is something like having a neurodiverse person actually come and explain to you what helps them work better. And we've done that before as well, where we had someone come on a call with partners and say, just share with us what helps you do your best work. And just having that ability for them to have a voice, to be able to explain what brings the best uniqueness out of them, helps all of us as a community ensure that everyone has the potential to reach what they are capable of. So it's those sorts of things. And maybe there's something new that we can look at and something that we haven't seen before that partners can bring to the table, and we can work on that. Another idea is sustainability. You know, is there something that we want to do together on sustainability and how that helps serve a higher cause of society? But I'm looking forward to having those open, creative conversations, having the ability to bring these topics to the table and have the ecosystem as a community be part of contributing to a path forward for many of these topics.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I think it's important to vocalize those. My husband actually has a generalized seizure disorder, so we know very well all the nuances of the neuro world, what we know and what we don't know. And it's beautiful to see that technology can actually expose some of the data that we can ultimately make decisions on and truly come at it from a place of facts and heart, rather than just, trying to shove an agenda down, everybody's throat. So I think that's just such a great way to go about it. And I think this leads to our discussion that we had about diversity of talent, right? So if we continue to empower and encourage diversity of thought, we're only raising the tide for everybody else, right? And one of the things that I think is fundamental, in our partnership is truly the best of breed technology that UiPath brings to the table. Every analyst has mentioned you, every Forrester report, every Gartner report, we see Magic Quadrants. We know that UiPath is leading the charge in those technologies. But technology is only as good as the humans that are using it, right? And those that are implementing it. And so WonderBotz has made a concerted effort to make sure that we are continuously breeding the best of talent to rise to the occasion and match that technology. So let's talk a little bit about, how it is that we come together to bring people together, to harness the craft. I know we talked about the community award, which thank you so much for bringing that up. We're so proud of our MVPs, and we continue to have new ones every year. But really, I think us promoting the education and the upskill required to make sure that whatever the new shiny toy is, and right now it's Gen AI, that we're all ready for it, both as leadership and practitioners. So tell us a little bit about how that ecosystem has changed, what you've observed at UiPath, and how we can continue to rise to the occasion to implement the best technologies in the market.
I mentioned a little bit of it before. I really look at, if you have a look at what we were with RPA, so automation of existing processes, and you think about just the pressure that's now being put on with generative AI, but also going into this AI world. And we spoke a little bit about this, where we said all of a sudden data becomes important. All of a sudden insights on data, and how do you make sure that your data is ready for these sorts of worlds, and how do you take insights into action. So think about the development of skills that are acquired across that horizon. It means that we are constantly learning, we are constantly pushing forward. So I always look at this deep operational expertise and constantly building it, but also making a decision. And I would say this, every partner has a choice of what they want to be known for. Just if I pause a moment on that, what as a partnership do you want to be known for when we are together? I really encourage partners to think about that. And then the domain expertise needed for that is obvious. And so how do you get continuous mastery of the crafts that we're going towards? How do we really have that specialization, that agility, that learning mindset at the core of what we do? And then how do we have customers actually being part of this journey really continues to be a part of our journey together, and directionally where I think we all need to go. Gen AI is going to have a disruptive effect. AI and automation has an effect. And then how do we learn to bring that all together? And that's where, intelligent automation is really going to have that transformative end-to-end capability. And I think that people get into this world, and these tools are really poised for almost what's next in business process. So I'm excited about it. Companies like yourselves, you've really gone and gone deep on forming some of those, the thinking maybe around financial services, where you say, or finance, where you say, how do we have a solution around this? How do we solution this from a point of view? How do we go deep on our understanding of this? So when we talk to customers, we're bringing something really valuable to the table. So I would say we see you as a partnership continuously investing in deep domain knowledge. It's demonstrated by your MVPs. And I'd love to continue that learning journey together on what's ahead of us as well.
I think that's spot on. And Bron, I think it's so important to also mention how, in the product roadmap, right, and even the commercial offerings that UiPath put out this year, it was truly a nuance, right? Because I think it's very easy as a vendor to push out a new technology, and it's easy to talk about the features. It's easy to say it does this, that fast, it processes this much, it takes this long. But there's been a very obvious shift in the UiPath mindset back to client centricity first and foremost, but also in understanding the difference between a program and a project. And I think that's changed the way that we're actually talking about automation. That's changed the scale story that our clients are beginning to understand, like the Iron Mountain example that you gave. And it's really giving us the opportunity to share with different lines of business. Maybe they started in finance and accounting, but guess what? Now you can take some of those learnings and the data that you've structured and make it have a flow that's material, in the end. So I think at the end of the day, those changes that we've seen, we've been kind of working so lockstep that as you guys pivot, we kind of pivot, we see how it goes. And we've always come from the place of value. And it seems like UiPath is really, really making a concerted effort to shift into the value chain, not just about features. We're talking about value. Have you seen that?
And that's certainly what you brought to the table is, a product becomes a value when you solution it to a customer requirement. And, when you look at areas that you've also pre-built solutions around, let's say the invoice bots or reporting, you start to actually say, this is the trend I see. And this is why customers like this trend, because it brings that value of thinking to the table. So it is about the customer. It is about the trends we see. It is about putting technology to work for the customer. And it's about, that continuous journey of value creation. And I would almost say continuously. It's not one and done, because we're a platform that enables continuous value creation for the customer. So, with us working together, those are the types of things that we can bring to the table.
Yes, and we've gone from project to program, and it shines and it shows. And I think the future is very bright.
I look forward to that future and what we can do together.
Thanks so much. Well, with that, Bron, we've reached the top of our segment. I really appreciate your time, your dedication to this partnership, and just the way you've taken charge in the last 6 months. I can only hope to see what's in store for us, and we'll be meeting at UiPath Forward come fall. Is that right?
Look forward to that.
All right, perfect.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, everybody. And you can catch the rest of the recap on our next episode. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes of Bitz About Botz. Thanks again, Bron.
Thank you.